Welcome back to another Pro Veto Coalition NAB 2020 video. Since we're not in Las Vegas, we are doing sort of NAB at home as we're talking with some of our the vendors and software manufacturers that we would have talked to while being NAB. I have on the line with me Paul from Hedge, and he's going to talk about what I'm calling the Hedge empire, because we have Hedge, we have PostLab, we have a number of applications that are all part of the Hedge umbrella. So Paul, give us a quick rundown of what you guys have going on. And if you don't know, Hedge originally was just a transfer app for the Macintosh, but has grown into so much more than just that one piece of software. So Paul, thanks for joining us. You are not in the same country as Las Vegas. So it's I don't know what time it is there. It's not super late, I don't think, but give us a little rundown of this Hedge empire. My term, not yours.
Sure, Scott.
I like that term.
Thanks for having me. Hedge is still just an offload app, but it does a lot of interesting stuff. Let me share a screen with you. So Hedge is, well, we originally built Hedge to make it easy to create multiple backups of a source card. So let's say I have a source card over here, and instead of creating one copy, I want to create maybe 3 copies. And we felt that shouldn't take longer than just creating one. So we made it very easy to create multiple backups. In this case, we try to make it super easy for data handlers on set, but also in the studio to make backups. It should be an afterthought instead of consuming a lot of time. So we always strive to make a super simple app, but have a lot of advanced technology under the hood, like source integrity checks. We have integrations for codecs, if you shoot with every RAW, for instance, PDF reporting with FullCAD, of course, Frame.io. Who doesn't use it nowadays?
Very nice.
And
very
Parachute
nice.
is a pretty neat free app for DITs that raises your card automatically after importing, making sure your camera can auto initialize it again.
So let me interrupt one quick second, and pardon the many interruptions that I may do. But part of the cool thing about Hedge was that the integrations are things that were added after you basically invented Hedge, and those integrations can continue throughout the lifetime of Hedge as you put more stuff into it.
In the core of Hedge, we always wanted to keep things simple, really simple. But as demands progressed and we try to build what users request from us, we have tacked on a lot of stuff that makes workflows more versatile. And give you a little backstory, when we started out with Hedge, the original idea was to cross the gap between camera and post-production. And there were just too many steps in between. And we started out at the first one, which was Hedge. And then we wanted to start working on the next one, transcoding, and then on the next one, and next one is sync. And well, that didn't happen because we were so busy with Hedge. And then last year, PostLab came around. And PostLab is sort of the last step in post-production, making it possible for everyone to collaborate as editors. And that got us thinking, like, maybe there's a way to just skip all the other steps in between. And that's the kind of integration we're now looking at to do. Like, how can we go straight from camera to backup? You always need a backup, and then straight into the editor. And that's where we think Hedge and PostLab strengthen each other. And that's why we got Jasper on board.
Well, let's talk about PostLab, because PostLab is more than just a single piece of software. It is a whole service. It is a whole architecture. It is a whole, workflow, if you will, that I think kind of, it was almost, it felt like, okay, Hedge is one product here on the left, and now PostLab is a whole other new world and product there on the right. Obviously, the idea is to make all things you guys do sort of integrated, but give us a once over of what PostLab is, because often I hear people say, "Oh, it's a collaboration tool, it's a remote editing tool," and sort of the top-down view of exactly what PostLab can do for those that don't know.
So yeah, Scott, you're right. PostLab is about collaboration, but collaboration in itself doesn't really mean a thing. What PostLab fixes for you is that it saves you from emailing project files to people and keeping versions around. So usually you might zip up a project, send it over to email to your collaborator, to your co-editor, and then they would work on their end and they would send you back their finished project file. And then you have to find a way to shuttle the media. And we wanted to make that a lot easier. So PostLab lets you create a production that you share with someone else, with a whole team of people, or just with someone else. And it can store Final Cut Pro libraries and Premiere Pro projects right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is that it tracks all changes. So you have versions to jump back into as you progress into the edit. You can open multiple versions of a project next to each other, so you can copy and paste data around. But that's not just on your end. Everybody else on your team sees it in real time as well. So as soon as you start editing a project, then it's locked for the others. They can always open a copy of the latest save point and continue to work on that, or may create a duplicate. But it's not exactly like bin locking, but it's more project locking. It's on a higher level.
Well, let's go back to locking for a second, because I think that's a kind of a misunderstood thing potentially about PostLab and sharing in general, because when you have one person who has a project open, another person, whether you're on PostLab or whether you're working on shared storage, another person can't open a Premiere project or a Final Cut library at exactly the same time. So there's always sort of management of teams working together of who is working on what. And with PostLab, if that your pre-edits Premiere project is open, if I was on this team, I would see a lock on that and would know that I can't open it and work in it, but could I open it and grab media out of it? Or say, if you told me a sequence is ready for me to touch, I could open it and grab that sequence out of there. I just couldn't, I couldn't save it or write to it, I guess.
You could not save it as an update because I'm already working on it until the second I close it, and then you update your library and then you can continue working on it. Or you create a duplicate and you continue to work on your end. And what we, for instance, see happening a lot of time is that you work on your end, you update a thing, you create a task for me saying, hey, you changed this and that, you can find it over here, grab it from your project, and then you can continue to work. And there are different workflows of doing it. For feature films, we see people using more reel-based approach. For factual, we see more master library and then offshoots from a master library for multiple editors. So there's different ways of working together, but the end goal of PostLab is to prevent corruption, noise, basically, of emails being sent back and forward, and which version am I on, and do you happen to recall which version we did that edit? That's all very easily to find back as you have a full history of all your changes.
Well, you said something key there, reduce emails, which is a great thing to do when you're working back and forth for long periods of time. Reduction of email is a great byproduct of being able to use something like this. Paul, look on the left side there, explain for a little bit the difference between people will see PostLab Cloud and they'll see Open Productions. Explain sort of, where the customer name, if someone named, Paul or John signs up for PostLab, what is the cloud versus the production? I think understanding what a production is helps people understand how PostLab works.
Yeah, PostLab works on has a hierarchy. On top of the hierarchy is a team, and you can be a team of one in this case. In this case, I'm in a team called Hedge for obvious reasons, and we have 12 members in there, actually. Members can be an owner, they can be a guest, they can be an editor, they can be an administrator. There are different roles there. And then there's typical Finder organization. You have folders, and within folders, there are productions. So let's dig in here. I did a little test here, and a production is what contains your actual projects or libraries if you work with Final Cut Pro, and it has tasks for it. This is the environment you work out of on this production. So this is what you share with someone else.
Is a task sort of like a place where you can make notes to another editor, or just instead of sending a text file or an email, you can put it in the tasks and they can see, and you can kind of chat back, and it's probably not real-time chat, but it's messaging back and forth. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's not just tasks. You can keep tabs on your progress. You can estimate how much time it's going to take you. So we have one user using it actually as a billing option.
Okay.
And there are different ways of using it. You can use it super lightweight. You can use it to track everything you want as well. We wouldn't say it's project management because that needs a lot more. You can use Confluence or Jira or Asana for that, for instance. But this is working together with your coworkers and making it as easy as possible to communicate with each other without losing any data. Because losing data or having corrupted files, that's annoying.
Gotcha. What is the shares icon there on the left?
Um, Apart from having a team, there are of course multiple teams across the world that you're not part of. You're part of your own team, but it's possible to share a production or to get invited by someone else on a different team to work on something together without having to be on that team. Because if you're on a team, you have access to everything within the team. So for instance, you would have a team, Scott, for your production company, and Brian would have a team for his production company, and you decide to work together on a single production. Then you share just that production with Brian, and only the two of you have access to that production. Gotcha. And of course, everyone in your team.
Gotcha. Now jump back into one of the productions there. I want to look at something else. If you go to the little plus sign on the bottom, I think that's a good thing for people to see, is there is your place where you can create, I guess you can create new Premiere projects or Final Cut libraries, or can you import existing projects, like I say, a Final Cut project that you want to bring into the head or the to the PostLab world?
Yeah, we build all our software to be vendor agnostic. So it should be very easy to start working with our software, but just as easy to stop working with our software. So if you happen to have a client that doesn't work with PostLab and they do send you an email with a project, then it's easy to just import an existing one, or you use the template engine that's in here. And you can define a template folder in the settings where you use your most commonly used templates, or you just use the blank template that we provide anyway. And with Premiere Pro, we have templates for each distinct version you have, and the same for Final Cut Pro, because libraries are binded to a version of Final Cut Pro. So if you're still on a legacy version, a bit older than the recent one, then we have a template specifically for that. Gotcha.
I see the option for document. Is that a place to share, scripts or text files, Word docs, or can you send graphics back and forth, or what's the use case for document?
Basically everything except media. So if you go to documents is a MIDI cloud upload of small files that travel with your production that you just want to keep at hand. Every production has a bit of design. It has a bit of a script, maybe some notes that you want to travel with this. Pretty soon, we're going to release a new version of documents, which is called Drive. We're going to replace documents with Drive. And what Drive does is, instead of having to open files from within PostLab, it mounts as a network drive like Google Drive does. But the big difference here is that it doesn't require you to download files. It also supports media. It doesn't require you to download media onto a local drive before being able to edit from it. You can stream it in from the cloud. So for instance, I would invite you for production. I would put my media into that drive. I would say, hey, Final Cut, create my proxies. I would put the proxies into the drive. I would send you an invite. You would open the drive and you could start editing straight away without having to download the media, because Drive only downloads the bits you need while playing back.
Sorry, so let's pause that for a second, because that's not small. So you could have a production, all the media living in another part of the country, another part of the world. You could share the upcoming PostLab Drive feature, share it with me. I am able to just start editing in Final Cut or Premiere by streaming the media through the internet, as opposed to waiting for the 2 gig, .mov file to download before I can start to work with it. So what kind of internet bandwidth does this require? Because this sounds like it's going to require me to have Google Fiber.
Well, yeah, that wouldn't hurt, but it's not
makes
necessary
everything
at all. Yeah. We've seen it, we're benchmarking it currently. We already seen it work with ProRes proxy on 100 Mbit line, a wonky 100 Mbit line. It's not so much about the speed, but more about the latency. So Wi-Fi doesn't help, but Ethernet is awesome.
Okay.
And we've already seen 70 Mbit codecs work, 100 Mbit codecs work as well. So basically the sky is the limit, I would say. Although codecs like ProRes and H.264 definitely are more convenient for this kind of workflow than using a red roll.
Yes.
I wouldn't do that myself.
I can imagine. I think this is the kind of thing where, in a remote world that we're living in now, that the idea of sort of these cloud-based workflows are becoming a reality, but I think people just have to keep their expectations in check with things like latency and their internet speed. My Comcast connection, every now and then it just, it's fast, but every now and then it just goes down and you don't know what's happened. And, there's the world of that type of, and that's a pretty heavy thing to be doing, is a streaming media from the cloud to edit. But, it is working in some respects, but I think keeping that in check is the important thing. So when can we expect Drive? Because that's pretty cool. And what will Drive cost? There's got to be, I'm sure there's a cost in addition to the basic cost of PostLab. So give us a rundown of when and how much on Drive.
Every team that's on the Pro plan already has a 100 gig drive, and every team plan has a terabyte available.
Okay.
And additional terabytes are $30 per month.
So if
you go beyond 10, there's a volume discount.
So is that so is the price based on how much you're storing in the cloud, it's not based on how much you stream in a given week or month or?
Yeah, the problem with cloud storage is we talk to a lot of companies that are using SneakerNet. They're sending off hard drives with FedEx, and they don't want to go to the cloud because the total cost of ownership is so unpredictable because of all the egress costs. You need to pay for upload, you need to pay for download, you need to pay for a fast connection, you need to pay for everything. And it's super hard to predict what a production will cost you in cloud cost if you're going to get SneakerNet out of the equation.
Sure.
So we wanted to make this super simple. So because the total cost of ownership of cloud storage is so unpredictable if you go for good cloud storage, apart from, say, Google Drive, which is a flat fee, we wanted to make PostLab Drive a flat fee as well. So we have no egress cost, there is no upload cost, there's no download cost. There's just a fixed price per terabyte per month.
Oh, wow.
And that's it.
Now you are, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. Where are you located?
Amsterdam.
You're in Amsterdam. But with this cloud world, if I'm a customer in the US and I use PostLab Drive, does it pick a place near me for, when I go to upload that media, or does it all go back to Amsterdam or close to where you guys are? Because that seems like that would, I don't know if that would make a difference of speed or not.
Yeah, every PostLab Drive is linked to your PostLab team, and your PostLab team has a location either in San Francisco, in New York, and Amsterdam right now, and we're rolling out more locations worldwide the rest of the year. And your PostLab Drive is connected to the same location. So I think you're in the San Francisco server yourself, actually. Gotcha. And so yeah, if I would need to download your media, then we would that would take longer for me probably. Although the latency isn't that bad, intercontinental. We are working on a feature for the team plan to synchronize media across the world on different locations, but that's coming later this year.
Gotcha. Now, last thing on PostLab, and I want to sort of go over this because I think a lot of people don't understand how PostLab works. When you are working in a Premiere project or Final Cut library, you are working on a local copy of the project file or the Final Cut library. It is not writing every time I hit Command S in Premiere, it's not writing that save back to the PostLab cloud. It's writing that locally. So with PostLab, you have to download your project when you go to work in the morning or at night. And then when you're done, you upload it back to your server, which is how it tracks all these versions. And it doesn't just, it tracks the versions by you putting in notes yourself, but you can also download and jump back multiple versions, because if I understand that correctly, all the versions from the beginning of your, working with the project in PostLab, all those versions are saved in the PostLab, Magic Cloud storage, right?
Yeah, that's important to understand. PostLab works locally. You always have all your files locally. The version history and all the added bits are stored in the cloud. So you can always work locally if needed. It wouldn't make sense to work on a project that's only stored in the cloud. That would just not be usable for anyone. So there's a complete local copy of your project. That's where you work on, and PostLab tracks changes on that project. We never intervene with the project itself. We just observe it and we track the changes, and the changes are what is saved to the cloud. And that's what makes it really safe as well, because we don't have complete projects stored. We only have tidbits and small bits and changes, and you need your client to reconstruct those into a full project.
Gotcha. Now, if I woke up one morning to go to work and my internet was down because a tree fell on my power lines or whatever, um, and I could not go into Post Lab and say open from Post Lab, would I have like the copy from last night existing on my hard drive where I could still work?
Yes, there's in your documents, there's folder Post Lab, and within that are bundles. Each production is a bundle, and within that bundle, there are all your files there. The second you do that, Post Lab, of course, cannot track any changes. So we advise you, if in the case you need to go offline, copy a Final Cut Pro library or Premiere Pro project, copy it outside of the bundle, start working on it, and whenever you go back online, re-import it as a new project.
Gotcha. But it's good fail safe for. I think people get scared sometimes with your Adobe subscription. Like, what if the internet goes down? Well, Premiere will still run for a while without an internet connection. But there's always it's good to have there ways to work around an internet interruption. Anything else in the Hedge empire? I'm going to use my quotes again that you want to give us a once over about?
Well, maybe it's a bit niche, but we have Canister, of course. Canister is our LTO archiving application. And LTO is notoriously hard to grasp and very IT focused. So we really make that easy to use. Let me give you a little share here.
Yeah, how you widely used is Canister? I don't see a lot of LTO out in the world, even though I know it exists. A lot of people do use it. Is it a pretty popular product for what it does?
Oh yeah, as soon as you're we sort of see there's a pyramid of users. One user just works on their MacBook Pro locally, and one level up you start working with external storage, and then you get a RAID, and at some point you get a network server, and at some point there's the question of, even if my network server is so large, I still have more media and I don't need it to be available at all times, but I just need to be sure I have it in my archive. And then there you only have two options. You go either to the cloud, which can be expensive, but doesn't have to be. And on the other hand, there's LTO, and there's not really an alternative between the two of them.
Well, I would add, hang on, I would add, many people just use bare hard drives for archiving, but there are, big pitfalls of archiving to spinning disks, which is a whole other conversation.
Yeah, the lifespan of a hard drive is just not suited for proper archiving. It works up to a few years, but you would never know it works. And with LTO, there's
proper
a
archiving
sort of guarantee.
Is it pretty much any LTO tape deck that you can plug into your Mac it will work with?
It's just IBM. Every tape drive is made by IBM.
So when I see something like, I think M-Logic makes that Thunderbolt one. So whatever the company is, who has a branded LTO drive, it's an IBM architecture inside of it. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, the drive itself, the tape deck, if you will, that's IBM. Everything around it is the manufacturers. And there are a ton of manufacturers out there that have their own philosophies. And M-Logic is a great one. M-Logic are the first ones to commoditize LTO into a Thunderbolt device. So there's a lot of technology in their housing that connects to the IBM drive. The bulk of the money is the IBM drive in the end.
Gotcha.
Canister is agnostic. It works with every drive. It works with multiple drives as well. It doesn't work with tape robots because we don't see those too often anymore. And most companies that use tape robots also use an integrated solution from either Quantum or SpectraLogic.
Right.
So it doesn't really make sense to use Canister there. But for desktop drives, as they're called by IBM, the standalone decks, Canister works with everyone there is. So let's connect one. And let's back up a bunch of screenshots here onto a demo drive. A problem with LTO is that if you use Finder for accessing LTO, it starts accessing the actual tape. Tapes don't like that. That introduces wear and tear to them. So what happened is that what we did with Canister is that we simulate the tape and let you browse the tape and do all the stuff you need to do until you actually start to transfer, and then we reconnect it to the hardware, and then we talk to the actual tape.
I got you. Now this
that
looks
really
like,
helps with the lifespan.
this looks a lot
nice
like it looks a lot like Hedge.
It is, yeah. It's the same philosophy.
Very
it's
nice.
Just even easier because whereas Hedge is a parallel multiplex thing where you can do multiple sources to multiple destinations.
Mm-hmm.
With LTO, you definitely do not want to do that. With LTO, you want to have a single source into a single or maybe two destinations if you have two tape decks, but that's it.
That makes sense.
We have something new coming to Canister, which we call tape catalogs. One issue with LTO is that it's not like a hard drive that you can just plug in and then browse and then see what's on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably, if you're using LTO a lot, then you have a bunch of drives, and if you need a file, you need some kind of system to know what file is archived in which tape. And a lot of people use Excel for it, or some other kind of easy management software, accounting software. So that's sort of a database. We think that's a bit 1999. So we were thinking, how can we make that easier? And what is the best way to have an index available of your media? It's Finder. Finder excels in browsing through media, browsing through folders. It can search it with Spotlight. So what we are introducing next month is a feature called Catalog. What it does, it takes a snapshot of your tape so you can browse it while it's not connected to your system.
Oh, nice.
And it has a history, actually. So in this case, I would say, hey, look, here's my tape. Demo effect again. This is a previous version of this tape that I can browse through, for instance. And without having the tape, and then I locate a clip, and then I would know I need to get my tape 1 mounted. And you mount it with Canister, and then you can retrieve it. And that should make it very easy because you can share this folder on a Dropbox or a Google Drive. So your whole company can browse through your archive without actually being near any tape drive.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think that solves one of the problems a lot of people have, which is the how to catalog sometimes hundreds of tapes. So that's neat. Paul, thanks a lot for joining us here. That's some cool stuff with Hedge and with PostLab and the stuff around the Hedge Empire. Hedge.video is the URL, which is the place. Does PostLab have its own unique domain, or do you go to Hedge.video for all things PostLab?
Yep. It's just one big site, one company, different products.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks a bunch. Hopefully next year we'll be back in Vegas and we'll be able to chat in person and hang out and have a drink and enjoy not being quarantined to our homes.
Let's hope so.
All right. Stay safe in Amsterdam. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Speak to you soon.